Hi all, welcome to the show. We have the usual news, not as much, a lot of intel, which is hints indicative, past, present, or future. There'll also be hints of take note, will be used in tonight's show a lot, and it's for you to connect the dots. Beware, 1111 is not as portrayed in alt media circles. They wish to dance in the dark. We will trample them into dust. As of now, shielding, being grounded, 45-55 will be essential in this next phase. Stay calm. And I mean, stay calm. Ain't that right, Dean and John Bryan?
Hey, no. Calm down. What's going on here?
Calm down, indeed. Right, we'll get into the news. The op-eds are packed. The intel is muted, but there's hidden intel spattered throughout this show. So, first news item, take note. President Trump has ratcheted up claims this week that the Obama White House spied on his 2016 campaign, charging in a new book that it was a treasonous act by the former Democratic president and leader of the Muslim Brotherhood and Langley 3, also former Pindar, penis dragon. Trump said what they did was treasonous, okay? It was treasonous. And he told the author, Doug Wead, for his upcoming book, Inside Trump's White House, the real story of his presidency. The interesting thing out of all this is that we caught them spying on the election. They were spying on my campaign, so you know, what is that all about? I have never ever said this, but the truth is they got caught spying. They were spying. Who then added the word Obama. In 2017, Trump tweeted that he felt that the Obama White House had my wires tapped in the Trump Tower. He later said he didn't mean it literally, but he felt that his campaign was being spied on. And yes, they were in the tower. Attorney General William Barr earlier this year said he was looking into whether improper surveillance may have occurred in 2016. I think spying did occur, he said, and he is tasked as prosecutor to investigate Obama officials and other officials who sparked the Russian collusion into Trump after the report showed no collusion. Now, new reports on that probe have described it as criminal in nature. The US government ended the fiscal year in 2019 with the largest budget deficit in 7 years, as gains in tax receipts were offset by higher spending and growth debt service payments, according to the dark chosen one from the Treasury Department. And it's the first time since the early 1980s that the budget gap has widened over 4 consecutive years. The figures reflect the second full budget year under US President Donald Trump and come at a time when the country has an expanding tax base with moderate income growth, economic growth, and an unemployment rate currently at a 50-year low, according to the statistics. I would suggest it's a lot different. The US budget deficit widened to $984 billion, of which was 4.6% of the nation's gross domestic product. And the previous fiscal year, the deficit was $779 billion, with a deficit to GDP ratio of 3.8%. Now, total receipts increased by 4% to $3.5 trillion, but outlays rose by 8.2% to $4.4 trillion. take note. Chile's President Sebastián Piñera has dismissed his whole cabinet in order to form a new government and introduce social reforms demanded by protesters. He said, "I have put out all my ministers on notice in order to restructure my cabinet to confront these new demands." Now, it's not yet clear what form the reshuffle will take, and more than 1 million people joined a peaceful rally on Friday in the capital of Santiago, all calling for social justice. Mr. Piñera said he'd heard the demands from the streets and we are in a new reality. Nice wording. Chile is different from what it was 1 week ago, and the president also announced that a curfew imposed in cities across Chile a week ago has been lifted, and the opposition has called for an ongoing state of emergency to end also. Fugitive leader of the Islamic State. Oh dear. Group killed himself during a US military operation in northwest Syria, according to Mr. Trump, who was fed by certain people from Langley. Speaking from the White House, Mr. Trump says Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi detonated his suicide vest after fleeing into a tunnel chased by US military dogs. Baghdadi came to prominence in 2014, which is kind of odd, given he wasn't around then, when he announced the creation of the Caliphate of the areas of Iraq and Syria. He's carried out multiple atrocities that resulted in thousands of deaths, his being Israel's security. The jihadist group imposed a brutal rule in the area under its control and was behind many attacks around the world. Although the US declared the caliphate defeated earlier this year, its militants remain active in the region and also elsewhere. Now, Baghdadi's death is a major victory for Trump, it is said, as he faces heavy criticism for his decision to pull US troops out of northern Syria and fights an impeachment inquiry launched by the Democrats. Imp, meaning devil, each, all, meant mind. Work it out. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and the leader of the jihadist group, allegedly, and arguably the world's most wanted man, killed himself during a raid by US commandos in northwest Syria, and the self-styled Caliph Ibrahim, oh dear, say Ibrahim or Abraham, had a $25 million bounty on his head and had been pursued by the US and its allies since the rise of IS 5 years ago. At its peak, IS controlled 88,000 square kilometres, or 34,000 square miles, of territory stretching from western Syria to eastern Iraq, and imposed its brutal rule on almost 8 million people and generated billions of dollars in revenue from oil. Connect the dots. Extortion and kidnapping, but despite the demise of its physical caliphate and its leader, IS remains a battle-hardened and well-disciplined force whose enduring defeat is not assured. That's the public view. The fake version. Pure and simple. Perpetrated by liars who are more content on more war and more destruction. And the Zionists set all that up. Sucked in the DOD and the CIA. And the president has been lied to by this ISIS leader who died 4 years ago. It's loot time again. Let's do the time warp. And a message to Mr. Trump. Get rid of Kushner and the National Security Advisor In fact, close down that position entirely until issues are resolved. Doing the same thing over and over again will not change results or outcomes. Now, Congress, it is stated, created the National Security, NSC, through the National Security Act. And we all know from Russia with 7 what that meant. Now, the idea of it was to create a body within the White House to gather and study various viewpoints from the president's cabinet and advisors to be shared with the president. That was a lie. And that whole act is to cover up crimes and clandestine programs of the agencies, as history has shown. The president doesn't access any or too many of those files. It's the old adage, he doesn't have the need to know. Next item. Health officials in southern Pakistan city say a rogue paediatrician has been reusing syringe needles that has led to nearly 900 children testing positive for HIV since an epidemic began earlier this year. Dr. Muzaffar Gangro, a paediatrician in the city of Ratodero, was arrested in May on charges of negligence and manslaughter after patients alerted investigators of his alleged unsavoury practices. Now, an investigation by police and health officials concluded Gangaro negligent and careless, and was responsible for the latest outbreak of HIV in Ratodero, where about 200 adults have also been tested for HIV since April. But according to health officials, they said the number of affected patients was likely very much higher, and given less than a quarter of Rotodero's 200,000 have been tested, according to the report. The organisation said some 600,000 unqualified doctors were thought to be operating unlawfully in Pakistan alone. 600,000 unqualified doctors. And nearly half of them are in the province where Ratodero is located. Take note. WhatsApp has sued Israeli surveillance firm NSO Group on Tuesday, accusing it of helping government spies break into the phones of roughly 1,400 users across 4 continents in a hacking spree whose targets included diplomats, political dissidents, journalists, and senior government officials. In a lawsuit filed in federal court in San Francisco, the messaging service WhatsApp, which is owned by Facebook Inc., accused NSO of facilitating government hacking sprees in 20 countries. Mexico, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain were the only countries identified. They said in a statement that 100 civil society members had been targeted and called it an unmistakable pattern of abuse. No surprise, is NSO denied the allegations in the strongest possible terms. They said, "We dispute today's allegations and we will vigorously fight them." The sole purpose of NSO is to provide technology to licensed government intelligence and law enforcement agencies. Take note. To help them fight terrorism and serious crime. WhatsApp said the attack exploited its video calling system in order to send malware to mobile devices of a number of users. The malware would allow NSO clients, said to be the government and intelligence organizations, to secretly spy on a phone's owner, opening their digital lives up to official scrutiny.